The dim lighting of Haven's bistro cast a golden glow on the polished wooden floors, the hum of conversation blending with the clatter of plates and the occasional burst of laughter. It was a Friday night, the restaurant packed with patrons eager to indulge in the chef's latest specials. At the far end of the dining hall, near the large bay windows, stood Jamal, a black waiter with 5 years of experience in the food service industry. Jamal prided himself on his professionalism. No matter how difficult a customer could be, he remained composed, ensuring top-tier service. But tonight would test his patience in ways he never imagined. A sharp snap of fingers drew his attention to a table in the corner. He turned to see a man in his late 50s, clad in an expensive suit, a Rolex glinting under the soft chandelier light. His face was set in a sneer, eyes filled with something Jamal recognized all too well: disdain. "You over here," the man barked. Jamal took a deep breath, put on his most professional smile, and approached. "Good evening, sir. My name is Jamal, and I'll be your server tonight. What can I get for you?" The man barely looked at the menu, his lip curling as he stared Jamal up and down. "I'll have the filet mignon, rare, and don't mess it up." Jamal nodded, scribbling the order on his notepad. "Of course, sir. Would you like any sides with that?" The man exhaled sharply, as if the very question annoyed him. "Just bring the food quickly, and don't hover." Jamal nodded again, resisting the urge to roll his eyes. He had dealt with worse customers before, but something about this man unsettled him. As he walked away, he could feel the man's gaze burning into his back. In the kitchen, he handed the order to the chef, shaking off the uneasy feeling. He had other tables to serve, and one difficult customer wasn't going to ruin his shift. But when Jamal returned with the filet mignon, perfectly cooked to order, the real trouble began. The man took one bite and immediately scowled. He set his fork down with exaggerated disgust. "This is unacceptable." Jamal blinked. "I'm sorry, sir. What seems to be the problem?" The man glared at him. "The steak is overcooked. I asked for rare. Do you people even know how to follow simple instructions?" Jamal's jaw tightened. He glanced at the steak. It was a perfect rare, just as the chef had prepared. "I apologize, sir. I can have the kitchen remake it for you." The man scoffed, pushing the plate away. "Forget it. Just get me a glass of wine, and hurry up." Jamal exhaled through his nose, willing himself to remain calm. He retrieved the wine and poured it carefully into a crystal glass, ensuring it was done with precision. But as soon as he placed it in front of the man, disaster struck. The man grabbed the glass roughly, and whether intentional or not, it slipped from his fingers, spilling deep red wine all over his crisp white shirt. Gasps rippled through the surrounding tables as the man shot to his feet, face turning an alarming shade of crimson. "You idiot," he roared. Jamal stepped back, stunned. "Sir, The man didn't let him finish. He slammed his fist onto the table, his voice cutting through the restaurant like a knife. "People like you shouldn't be here." Silence fell over the restaurant. Every eye was on them now. Jamal felt his pulse quicken, the weight of 100 stares pressing against him. For a moment, no one moved. Then, something unexpected happened. A thick silence hung over Haven's bistro, as if the very air had frozen in time. Every diner, every waiter, every cook peeking from the kitchen had their eyes locked onto the scene. The only sound was the soft dripping of red wine from the man's soaked shirt onto the pristine white tablecloth. Jamal could feel the heat rising to his face, but he forced himself to stay calm. The words the man had just spat at him, "People like you shouldn't be here," echoed in his mind like a hammer, striking steel. He had dealt with his fair share of rude customers before, but this wasn't just rudeness. This was something uglier, something that clawed at his insides. Daring him to react, he wouldn't. "Sir," Jamal said evenly, "I apologize for the spill. Let me get you some napkins." The man's face twisted in fury. "I don't need your damn napkins. What I need is competent service, which query doesn't exist in this place if they're hiring people like you." A fresh wave of gasps rippled through the crowd. Jamal's fingers curled at his sides. He stole a glance toward his manager, Mr. Thompson, who was already making his way over, his expression tight with concern. "Sir," Mr. Thompson said, stepping between them. "Is there a problem?" The man rounded on him. "Damn right, there's a problem. This boy," his voice dripped with condescension, "spilled wine all over me. And look at how he's standing there. No remorse, no accountability. Is this what passes for customer service in this establishment?" Jamal's teeth clenched so hard his jaw ached. He wanted to say something, anything, but he knew how this game worked. If he lost his temper, even if he was in the right, it would be his job on the line. Mr. Thompson nodded curtly. "Sir, we deeply apologize for the inconvenience. If you'd like, we can compensate you for the meal, and I'd be happy to personally see that your order is remade to your satisfaction." The man wiped his stained shirt with a napkin, sneering. "Compensate? You think throwing a free meal at me makes up for this? I should be calling my lawyer for a lawsuit." "Sir, I want him fired." The man jabbed a finger at Jamal, his voice sharp as a blade. "Right now." Murmurs spread through the restaurant like wildfire. A woman at a nearby table muttered, "This is ridiculous," while another man shook his head in disgust. Jamal's heart pounded. He wasn't just humiliated, he was angry. The words clawed at his throat, demanding to be spoken. But just as he opened his mouth, another voice cut through the tension. "That's enough." The entire restaurant turned. A woman stood up from a table near the bar, her dark brown hair cascading over her shoulders. She was dressed in a sleek black dress, a designer handbag resting on her chair. But it wasn't her outfit that caught attention, it was the power in her voice. The rude customer's face contorted in irritation. "Excuse me," I said, "that's enough." The woman took a step forward, her heels clicking against the floor. "I've been sitting here this entire time, watching you berate this waiter for something that wasn't even his fault. And now you want him fired. For what? For doing his job." The man's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "This doesn't concern you." The woman smirked. "Oh, but it does. You see, I happen to own this restaurant." A stunned silence spread through the room. Jamal's eyes widened. He had worked at Haven's Bistro for years, but had never once seen the owner in person. The rumors were that she was a business mogul, running multiple restaurants across the city, but no one ever really knew when or if she'd show up. And now, here she was. The man's face paled. "You what? You heard me," she said, her voice steel. "And I don't tolerate this kind of behavior in my establishment." The man straightened, attempting to recover. "Look." The woman raised a hand, cutting him off. "You don't get to humiliate my staff, throw a tantrum, and then demand someone's job. That's not how this works. If anything, you're the one who shouldn't be here." A slow clap started from a booth near the back, then another. Within seconds, the entire restaurant erupted into applause. The man's face turned scarlet. He glanced around, realizing that he had no eyes in the room. With a huff, he snatched his coat from the chair, his movements jerky with rage. "This is absurd," he muttered under his breath. "I'm never coming back here again." The woman crossed her arms. "Good?" Without another word, the man stormed toward the exit, shoving past a waiter on his way out. The door slammed shut behind him. A collective exhale seemed to sweep through the restaurant. People exchanged glances, some shaking their heads, others whispering about what had just transpired. Jamal stood frozen. He had expected the worst. He had braced himself for a scenario where his boss sided with the customer, where he would be forced to defend himself or, worse, lose his job. Instead, the restaurant's owner had backed him up. Before he could process it all, she turned to him. "Jamal, right?" He swallowed and nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "You handled that well. Take a break. You deserve it." He hesitated, unsure whether to argue his shift wasn't over, but something in her expression told him it wasn't a suggestion. "Thank you," he murmured before heading toward the back. As he passed through the kitchen doors, the weight of what had just happened settled in his chest. But even as he tried to shake off the adrenaline, a thought gnawed at him. Something about the way that man had looked at him, the way he had spoken those words. People like you shouldn't be here. It felt personal, and personal grudges had a way of coming back. Jamal leaned against the cold steel counter in the staff break room, his fingers pressed against his temples. The distant hum of conversation and clinking dishes in the dining hall still echoed in his ears, but his mind was elsewhere. He should have felt relieved. The restaurant's owner had stood up for him. The rude customer had been sent packing. And yet, a gnawing unease sat heavy in his gut. Something about that man, his rage, his words, the way he had stared at Jamal with such loathing. It didn't feel like just another bad customer encounter. It felt personal, and personal grudges had a way of resurfacing. A knock on the door jolted him from his thoughts. "Hey," came a familiar voice. It was Lisa, one of the senior waitresses. She was in her mid-30s, her brown hair tied back in a ponytail, her blue eyes filled with concern. "You good?" Jamal forced a tight smile. "Yeah, I'm fine." Lisa stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "That was some crazy stuff out there." "No kidding." He rubbed his face. "I've had bad customers before, but that guy." Lisa nodded. "He was different." Jamal looked at her, eyebrows raised. "You noticed it too?" "Oh, yeah." She sat on the edge of the table, crossing her arms. "I mean, rude customers come and go, but the way he talked to you, the way he said, 'People like you shouldn't be here.'" She shook her head. "That wasn't just about the service. That was about you." Jamal exhaled slowly. "Exactly." Lisa hesitated, then leaned in slightly. "Listen, I don't want to freak you out, but I think I've seen that guy before." Jamal's stomach tightened. "Where?" Lisa chewed her lip. "Not here, but I swear I've seen him in the news." Jamal straightened. "The news?" She nodded. "I don't remember the details, but I think he's some kind of businessman. Maybe politics. I just remember his face." Jamal's pulse quickened. A politician? That could mean trouble. Before he could respond, the break room door swung open again. "Mr. Thompson," the restaurant manager, stepped inside. "Jamal," he said, his expression unreadable. "Can I see you for a second?" Lisa shot him a look as if to say, "Good luck," before slipping out the door. Jamal stood, his heart hammering. "What's up, boss?" Mr. Thompson sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, first off, I want to say you handled that situation well. You kept your cool. That's not easy." Jamal stood, his heart hammering. "What's up, boss?" Mr. Thompson sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, first off, I want to say you handled that situation well. You kept your cool. That's not easy." Jamal nodded, waiting for the but. "And I want you to know that we've got your back," Mr. Thompson continued. "That guy, he was out of line, and you didn't do anything wrong." Jamal exhaled, some of the tension in his chest easing. "I appreciate that." Mr. Thompson hesitated. "That being said, there it was. The but. That guy, his name is Richard Langford," Mr. Thompson said. "And Lisa was right. He's not just some random customer." Jamal's stomach dropped. "Who is he?" Mr. Thompson gave him a long look before answering. "He's the CEO of Langford Industries, and a major political donor." Jamal's breath hitched. Langford Industries. He'd heard the name before, one of the biggest real estate development companies in the state. They had contracts with the city, with businesses, even with politicians. Jamal frowned. Why would a guy like that come here? Haven's Bistro isn't exactly some high rollers hangout. Mr. Thompson shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know, but here's what I do know," he called the corporate office. Jamal stiffened. "What?" Mr. Thompson nodded. "After he left, he must have gone straight to his car and made the call. He's demanding that you be fired." A heavy silence settled between them. Jamal clenched his jaw. "And what did corporate say?" "They told him no," Mr. Thompson said firmly. "Our owner already put her foot down. She made it clear that we don't bow to bullies." Jamal exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Relief flooded through him, but only for a second. Because something told him. Richard Langford wasn't the kind of man who just let things go. What do you think he's gonna do? Jamal asked quietly. Mr. Thompson sighed. I don't know, Jamal, but I need you to keep your guard up, and if anything weird happens, you let me know. Understand? Jamal nodded. Yeah, I got it. Mr. Thompson clapped him on the shoulder. Take a few more minutes, then get back out there when you're ready. Jamal waited until the manager left before sinking back into his chair. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The rest of Jamal's shift passed without incident, but the unease in his gut never faded. Even after he clocked out, changed into his hoodie, and stepped outside into the cool night air, he felt it-like eyes watching him from the shadows. Shoving his hands into his pockets, he started the walk home. His apartment was only a few blocks away, and he usually enjoyed the peaceful nighttime stroll. But tonight, the streets felt different. The occasional passing car, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, every sound put him on edge. Then, as he rounded the corner onto a quieter street, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. A black SUV was parked across the street. The engine was running, its headlights off. Jamal slowed his pace, his pulse quickening. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just some random car. But as he walked past, the driver's side window rolled down just enough for him to see a figure inside. And then, in the dim glow of a street lamp, he saw the face of Richard Langford staring back at him. Their eyes met for a split second. Then the SUV's tires screeched as it peeled away into the night. Jamal stood frozen, his heart slamming against his ribs. This wasn't just a grudge. Langford was watching in, and Jamal had a gut feeling that whatever was coming next was going to be a hell of a lot worse. Jamal stood rooted to the spot, his breath shallow as the taillights of Richard Langford's SUV disappeared around the corner. His mind raced. Was Langford trying to scare him? Was he just watching? Or was this something more? Jamal had grown up in a rough neighborhood. He knew what it meant when someone was keeping tabs on you. It was never good. Swallowing hard, he forced himself to move. Standing around like a sitting duck wasn't an option. He quickened his pace, glancing over his shoulder every few steps. His senses heightened. Every shadow, every parked car, every flickering street lamp felt like a threat. By the time he reached his apartment building, sweat slicked his palms. He unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and bolted it shut behind him. The familiar scent of his small apartment, cheap air freshener and leftover takeout grounded him, but not enough to calm his nerves. He paced the living room, running a hand over his head. Okay, think. He had three choices. 1. Ignore it. Hope Langford's intimidation was just that, intimidation. 2. Report it to the police. But what could he even say? A rich businessman is following me after getting kicked out of my restaurant. That wouldn't get him anywhere. 3. Tell someone, Mr. Thompson, Lisa, anyone, just so someone else knew what was going on. The third option seemed the smartest. He reached for his phone and dialed Lisa's number. She answered on the second ring. Jamal, what's up? Listen, I need to talk to you. The concern in her voice was immediate. What happened? Jamal hesitated before saying, Langford followed me. What? I saw him. He was parked outside. As soon as I walked past, he sped off. Lisa cursed under her breath. Oh, hell no. I don't know what his game is, but I have a bad feeling, Jamal admitted. You think he's planning something? I don't know, he said honestly, but I don't think this is over. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm coming over. Jamal blinked. Wait, what? I don't want you sitting there alone freaking out. I'll grab some food and be there in 10. Before Jamal could protest, she hung up. He exhaled, running a hand down his face. Having someone there would be nice, but it wouldn't change the fact that Richard Langford had money, power, and a grudge. And Jamal was just a waiter. Lisa arrived in record time, 2 burgers and a bag of fries in hand. She didn't waste time with small talk. She sat on his couch, unwrapped her food and said, Okay, Let's figure out what we're dealing with. Jamal sat across from her, still uneasy. You make it sound like a crime show. Lisa took a bite of her burger, talking around it. A rich white man with a temper problem is following you after humiliating himself in public. Sounds like a crime show to me. Jamal shook his head. But what can we do? We can't prove anything. Lisa wiped her mouth, thinking. No, but we can be prepared. How? Lisa leaned forward. First, we document everything. Every time you see him, every suspicious thing that happens, write it down. If he's got a pattern, we'll catch it. Jamal nodded slowly. All right. And then, second, Lisa continued, you don't go anywhere alone for a while. Not at night, not after work, nothing. Jamal frowned. I can't live in fear. Lisa, you don't have to, but you do have to be smart, she countered. Langford doesn't strike me as the type to take no for an answer. Jamal sighed. And what if he escalates? Lisa's face darkened. Then we fight back. The next few days at Haven's Bistro were normal to normal. Jamal kept expecting Langford to show up again to cause another scene, but he didn't. No strange calls, no complaints, no unmarked black SUVs. Lisa was starting to think maybe he had backed off. Maybe the embarrassment was enough, she said during a shift, wiping down the counter. Jamal wasn't convinced. No, guys like him don't let things go. And sure enough, on the fourth day, something did happen. It started with whispers among the staff. Then, Mr. Thompson called an emergency meeting. All right, listen up, he said, rubbing his forehead. We've got a problem. Jamal and Lisa exchanged looks. What kind of problem? Another waiter asked. Mr. Thompson sighed. We're getting swarmed with bad reviews. Jamal frowned. What? Google, Yelp, Facebook, you name it. Mr. Thompson explained. Fake reviews saying the restaurant is racist, that we discriminate against customers. Jamal's stomach twisted. Lisa's expression darkened. Let me guess. It started 3 days ago. Mr. Thompson nodded grimly. Yep. Jamal clenched his jaw. Langford, almost definitely. Lisa scoffed. Well, so the rich, powerful businessman decided to go on a smear campaign against a restaurant because a black waiter hurt his feelings. Mr. Thompson's face was tense. I don't know if it's him personally, but someone's behind this, and it's hurting business. Jamal felt the weight of it settling over him. He had known Langford wasn't finished, but this was underhanded. Is corporate doing anything? Someone asked. They're trying, Mr. Thompson said, but the damage is adding up. We've lost a ton of reservations. Jamal felt a bitter taste in his mouth. He had worked so hard for this job. He had built something here, and now because of one entitled man, it was all crumbling. Lisa crossed her arms. We need to hit back. Mr. Thompson frowned. How? Lisa's gaze flicked to Jamal. By telling the truth. Jamal blinked. What do you mean? We go public, Lisa said. We post our side of the story. We tell people what really happened. Jamal hesitated. That could make things worse. Or, Lisa countered, it could stop Langford in his tracks. The room was silent. Then Mr. Thompson nodded. All right, let's do it. Jamal exhaled. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about standing up to a man who thought he could buy silence. It was about proving that people like Langford didn't get to decide who belonged. And Jamal was ready for a fight. The decision to go public wasn't one that Jamal took lightly. He knew the risks. Richard Langford wasn't just some bitter customer. He was a man with influence, connections, and the ability to crush anyone he saw as an obstacle. But Jamal also knew that staying silent meant letting Langford win, and that wasn't going to happen. Lisa worked fast. Within an hour, she had typed up a draft of their statement, showing it to Jamal and Mr. Thompson in the back office of Haven's Bistro. Here's what we say, she began, reading from her phone. Recently, our restaurant has been the target of a coordinated smear campaign. False reviews have flooded our pages, claiming discrimination and poor service. These claims are not only untrue but are an attempt to retaliate against our refusal to tolerate racist behavior inside our establishment. Jamal nodded slowly. It's strong. Lisa continued, "We believe in treating all customers with respect and dignity, regardless of race, background, or status. Unfortunately, one wealthy patron did not share these values. After making inappropriate remarks to one of our employees and being asked to leave, he has since resorted to online attacks in an attempt to damage our reputation." Jamal felt a lump in his throat as Lisa scrolled to the last paragraph. "We will not be bullied into submission. Our restaurant stands firm in our commitment to fairness, and we refuse to let intimidation silence us. If you have ever dined at Haven's Bistro and experienced our hospitality, we ask you to share your honest reviews to combat these false claims." Lisa finished reading and looked up. "Thoughts?" Mr. Thompson let out a low whistle. "That's bold." Lisa shrugged. "Well, we need bold. If we tiptoe around it, people won't take us seriously." Jamal exhaled. "Yeah? Let's post it." With Mr. Thompson's approval, Lisa uploaded the statement across all their social media platforms. It didn't take long for people to react. At first, there was silence. Then, little by little, comments began to roll in. "This is insane. Who would do something like this? I eat here all the time, and I've never once seen discrimination. Is this about that rich guy who threw a tantrum? Unreal." And then something amazing happened. Regular customers started leaving real reviews, countering the fake ones. "I've been coming here for years. The staff is always professional and kind. Jamal is one of the best waiters I've ever had. This place does not deserve the hate. We're coming in for dinner tonight to show support." By the end of the day, hundreds of positive reviews had flooded in, burying the fake ones. Haven's Bistro went from losing customers to being booked solid for the entire weekend. Jamal couldn't believe it. "They're actually supporting us," he murmured as he scrolled through the comments. Lisa grinned. "Damn right they are." Mr. Thompson chuckled. "Looks like we just flipped this whole thing around." Jamal felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, Langford had overplayed his hand. But then the phone rang. Jamal answered without thinking. "Haven's Bistro. How can I enjoy your little victory, boy?" Jamal's blood ran cold. "Langford." Before Jamal could respond, Langford chuckled darkly. "You really thought an internet post would fix this? You have no idea who you're messing with." Jamal tightened his grip on the phone. "I don't scare easy, Langford." "You should," Langford said smoothly, "because people like you shouldn't be here." Jamal's knuckles went white. Langford laughed. "Let's see how long your little restaurant lasts. Let's see how long you last." The line went dead. Jamal stood there, heart pounding. He turned to Lisa and Mr. Thompson, his face grin. "What is it?" Lisa asked, concern in her eyes. Jamal swallowed hard. "He's not done." That night, Jamal couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming. Lisa had offered to stay over again, but Jamal refused. If Langford was going to make a move, Jamal didn't want anyone else getting caught in the crossfire. He barely slept. Every creak of his apartment made his nerves spike. Every car passing by made him wonder if Langford had sent someone. At 3 a.m., his phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. "Check the restaurant." Jamal sat up straight, his chest tightening. He immediately called Lisa. "Lisa, wake up," he said urgently. Lisa groaned. "Jamal, what time is it?" "Someone just texted me. Said to check the restaurant." Lisa was silent for a second. Then she was wide awake. "I'm coming to get you." 15 minutes later, they arrived at Haven's Bistro. The moment Jamal stepped out of the car, he knew something was wrong. The front door was slightly ajar. "Jamal," Lisa warned, grabbing his arm. "This isn't safe." Jamal pulled away, stepping inside cautiously. His stomach dropped. The place was wrecked. Tables overturned, chairs broken, glass shattered across the floor. Spray painted across the walls, in bold red letters, were the words, "People like you shouldn't be here." Lisa gasped. "Oh my God." Jamal felt his body go numb. Mr. Thompson arrived minutes later, his face going pale at the sight. Jamal clenched his fists. This wasn't just a warning. It was war. The next few hours were a blur of police calls, interviews, and cleaning up the mess Langford's message had left behind. The sight of the restaurant defaced in such a cruel, direct way rattled Jamal to his core. But it also ignited something deeper, something stronger. He refused to let Langford or anyone else destroy what they had built. Jamal worked through the night with Mr. Thompson and Lisa, scrubbing off the spray paint, setting up barricades, and boarding up broken windows. Their efforts weren't just about damage control. They were about reclaiming their space, their dignity. The police arrived, asking questions and taking notes. But Jamal's mind was elsewhere. The words "people like you shouldn't be here" echoed in his head over and over. They were meant to degrade, to silence him. But Jamal wasn't going to back down. Around 6 a.m., Jamal stood in the center of the restaurant, his arms crossed, staring at the damage. Lisa joined him, wiping her hands on a rag. "We can't just let this go," Lisa said, determination in her voice. "I know," Jamal replied, his voice low. "We need to make sure the world sees what happened here. Langford might have thought he could scare us, but now he's made it personal." Mr. Thompson stepped up behind them. "It's not just the restaurant, Jamal. This is about every person who's been told they don't belong somewhere. This is about standing up for something bigger." Jamal nodded. "I'm with you, all the way." The three of them huddled together, planning their next move. They knew they had to hit back harder than ever before. Posting about the vandalism wasn't enough anymore. They needed to go public in a way that would make Langford regret ever targeting them. It was time to mobilize. Jamal reached out to several local journalists, giving them an exclusive story about what happened at Haven's Bistro. The media quickly picked up the story, and soon, people across the city were talking about it. But it wasn't just any story. This was about more than a restaurant being attacked. It was about racism and inequality being exposed in plain sight. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours, support poured in from all over the city. Local activists, business owners, and ordinary people rallied behind Haven's Bistro. Donations were made to help repair the damage, and even a few celebrities lent their voices to the cause. On social media, the hashtag #WeStandWithJamal's Bistro trended. Every post, every share, every comment added fuel to the fire. Jamal couldn't believe the outpouring of support. For every hateful comment from Langford's followers, there were 10 more from people who refused to tolerate his kind of behavior. But then, something unexpected happened. Late that afternoon, Jamal received another message, this time from an unknown number. He opened it, his heart racing. It was a picture, a photo of Richard Langford. But this wasn't just any photo. It was a picture of Langford in a meeting with someone Jamal recognized. It was the mayor. Jamal's breath caught in his throat as he zoomed in on the image. The mayor, who had never been a vocal supporter of racial equality, was sitting across from Langford, shaking his hand. The picture was taken at Langford's mansion. Jamal could tell by the opulent backdrop. The message that came with the picture was chilling. Langford's power goes all the way to the top. You think this is over? Think again. Jamal stared at the screen, his mind racing. This wasn't just about a racist customer anymore. This was about something bigger, something deeper. Langford wasn't working alone, but Jamal wasn't afraid. If anything, he felt more determined. He wasn't going to let this powerful man or anyone else intimidate him. "Lisa," Jamal said, looking up, "I need you to do something for me." She raised an eyebrow. "What?" "I need you to get this photo out there. I don't care who sees it, but the world needs to know what Langford's really about." Lisa nodded, already on it. Within minutes, the photo of Langford and the mayor hit social media. And this time, there was no stopping the backlash. People were furious, demanding accountability for the mayor's association with Langford. The mayor's office released a statement denying any wrongdoing, but the damage had already been done. The connection was undeniable. As the public outcry grew louder, Jamal felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. The battle had shifted. This wasn't just about Haven's Bistro anymore. This was about exposing a system that had allowed people like Langford to operate with impunity for far too long. And then, just as things seemed to reach a boiling point, Langford made one last move. The attack came in the form of an anonymous tip, a false accusation. The tip claimed that Jamal had been caught stealing from the restaurant's cash register, that he had been embezzling money for months. The allegation spread like wildfire, and before long, local news outlets were running the story. Jamal's heart sank. This was the final play to destroy his reputation, tarnish his name, and wipe him out completely. But Jamal didn't back down. He had a plan. The moment the story broke, Jamal and Lisa were already one step ahead. They had anticipated this kind of attack, and they had the proof to clear his name. They immediately posted security footage from the restaurant, showing the exact times and dates of every transaction. It proved, without a doubt, that Jamal was innocent. Jamal's response was simple but powerful. Langford can try to ruin me. He can try to slander my name, but I know who I am, and I will not let him or anyone else dictate where I belong. I belong right here, right where I'm standing. It was a bold declaration, and as it echoed across social media, something incredible happened. People took to the streets. Protesters showed up at the mayor's office. They marched in front of Langford's mansion. They demanded accountability, and just like that, the tide began to turn. Langford's power was crumbling. Jamal stood at the front of the restaurant the next day, watching the crowd of supporters who had gathered outside. He couldn't believe it. For the first time, he felt like they had truly won. And that's when Jamal realized something. The fight wasn't just about the restaurant anymore. It was about something much bigger. The fight was for every person who had ever been told they didn't belong. The fight was for every person who had ever been told they weren't good enough. And in that moment, Jamal knew he had won no matter what Langford did next. If you like this story, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, in order to strengthen our community, I would like to know where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video. Thanks for watching.